So the core of the Solace Summit is shared experiences and learning. And we're joined now by Sam Gaston. Now, Sam is the president of the International City Managers Association, the ICMA, based in America. And he's also a city manager himself. So he's bringing a lot of experience across the Atlantic. Sam, thank you so much for joining us on Solace TV.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us, what brings you here?
Well, several reasons. I don't think ICMA sent a representative last year to the conference, and so the timing as far as the international trip was good for me and my wife, and we are enjoying our first trip to Scotland.
So how relevant are the propositions that we're discussing here to the issues that you're facing back at home?
I think of the 4 propositions, or tracks or themes as we would call them in the States. I think 4 of the 5 are very relevant to America and what we're facing in the United States.
So which 4 are relevant?
I think the only one that's really not that relevant is the local government as a public health organization, because that is usually more of a state function in the United States as opposed to local government. The other ones, as far as the changes of, times are changing and we must change with them, especially the economic development, and then of course also the changes for as far as networks and changes in technology. So we're seeing those are certainly things that we all deal with in the States and going to continue to deal with, because we are in competition with other local governments as far as sales tax dollars, economic development, etc. But at the same time, we also cooperate, because sometimes it can be a boom for the entire area.
Now, we're hearing a lot in the news this week about the American Jobs Bill. How does the disagreement that's happening in Washington affect what you're trying to do as a city manager?
Well, it's not really affecting my community at the present, but some of our larger communities, because of some of the infrastructure improvements that could be made through this bill. Our community is only 21,000, but we have, of course, took advantage of some small stimulus funding grants. But it's going to be interesting to see how this finally plays out in Washington, and if it will actually benefit local governments and some of the infrastructure needs of our communities.
And is this lack of consensus, is that a political issue? Is that actually just hindering what you're trying to achieve?
Well, right now we have a lot of stalemate in Washington, and unfortunately politics seem to continue to rear the head as opposed to trying to move the country together. So I would hope that both sides would work this out so it would be something good for the nation and also put more people back to work.
So what are you going to take home with you? What are the practical solutions and experiences that you're going to share with your colleagues at the ICMA?
Well, certainly, as I'm taking a lot of notes and reviewing some of these sessions, I feel like we can take the information back, because this is what's going on in the UK. This is what we can do in our own local communities. And also, not only that, also in my local community. So eager to learn, eager to find out what other communities are doing and what's going on in the UK, and see how that can be applied to us in the United States.
Now, Sam, you're obviously fresh out of your own conference in Milwaukee last month. What experiences are you hoping to share with your colleagues here in the UK? And is there something where you're thinking to yourself, hang on a minute, that's not how I would do it?
Well, I've only attended 2 of the sessions so far, so hopefully as I go through these other sessions through the remainder of the conference, we'll see if that does occur. I think we all can learn from each other. City and county managers for local government, we all have some major traits that we all share, skills, etc. But also our countries are somewhat different, and so there will be some things that will be done differently here in the UK as opposed to the US or someplace else in Central Europe. But city managers, county managers, we all share a common bond that we're trying to provide good and efficient services to the people that we serve.
And finally, Sam, outside of the summit, how important is it to share what you're learning throughout the year with colleagues overseas?
Well, I think it's very important. ICMA, we consider ourselves to be an international organization, and by adding a 3rd international vice president, and by some of the international travel that I will be doing this year, as well as some of the other board members, we're trying to become, have a closer relationship with our international colleagues. And I feel like that we can share information, we can learn from each other, and also by, sometimes job sharing, job swapping as such, or partnerships. So I feel like those things are going to continue to improve between the United States, ICMA, and some of our affiliates across the world.
Well, Sam, that's been a fascinating insight, and thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Thank you for having me.